You're celebrating your 10th wedding anniversary at the city's most expensive restaurant. Your husband just gave you a beautiful card, champagne is flowing, and you're admiring the skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows. But then you see something in that window's reflection that changes everything. Your loving husband dropping a pill into your wine glass, thinking you're not watching. That moment shattered my world, but what I did next? That's where this story gets interesting. My name is Olivia, and this is how I turned my husband's deadly plan into his ultimate downfall. The champagne flute crashed to the floor as I watched Nathan's reflection in the restaurant window. My heart stopped as I saw him slip something into my wine while he thought I was admiring the view. 10 years of marriage, and in one horrifying second, I realized the man sharing my bed had been planning my destruction. "Everything okay, darling?" Nathan asked, his voice honey-smooth as he slid the poisoned glass closer to me. That anniversary card between us, 10 beautiful years, suddenly felt like a death sentence. But here's the thing about building a successful consulting business from scratch. You learn to read people, and my survival instincts were screaming. I excused myself to the restroom, my mind racing. Was I losing it? Had I really seen what I thought I saw? That's when Jessica, a young server, knocked on the door. Her hands were shaking as she whispered, "Mrs. Lawrence, I saw your husband put something in your wine. I've seen him here before with others. He's always so calculating." The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't paranoia. This was survival. I stared at my reflection in that marble bathroom, and for the first time in months, I saw clearly. The late-night calls, the second phone, the way he'd stopped looking at me during conversations. The signs had been there, multiplying like cancer cells, but I'd refused to connect the dots. I returned to our table with a plan forming in my mind. Nathan barely looked up, already reaching for his phone again. Our wine glasses sat between us like chess pieces, mine full of poison, his barely touched. I had seconds to decide: confront him and risk everything, or turn his own weapon against him. "Wait," I said, reaching forward with a smile that could have cut glass. "We never properly toasted our anniversary." In one smooth movement, I switched our glasses, sliding his toward me and mine, the poisoned one toward him. "To 10 more years," I said, raising my glass. Nathan looked confused for a split second, then his practiced smile returned. "To 10 more," he echoed, and drank deeply from what should have been my death sentence. Within minutes, Nathan began to sweat. His words started slurring, his face drained of color, and his hands trembled as he reached for his water glass, knocking over the wine instead. The dark liquid spread across the white tablecloth like blood from a wound. "Nathan!" I shouted, standing quickly as he slumped forward. The dining room fell silent as other guests stared. "Call 911. Jessica appeared from nowhere, her face pale as she looked from Nathan to me, understanding exactly what had just happened. As the paramedics carried him away, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: clarity. The fog of confusion that had surrounded me was lifting, revealing a landscape I needed to navigate, not as a victim but as a survivor. The emergency room doctor delivered the news that confirmed my worst fears. He ingested a high dose of diazepam, heavily concentrated, potentially lethal. "You're lucky you switched those glasses." Lucky? No, I was smart. I trusted my instincts over his familiar smile. But the real shock came 2 days later when Vanessa, one of Nathan's clients, called me crying. The SEC had flagged irregularities in her account. Nathan's investment firm, the one featured in business magazines, was collapsing. Months of bad trades, failed investments, and increasingly risky deals had caught up to him. That's when I found the storage bin in our home office labeled Tax Archives 2015, a place he knew I never looked. Hidden inside were letters from banks, SEC warnings, and an unsigned power of attorney that would have transferred all my company assets to his name if I had been incapacitated. He didn't want me dead. He wanted me silent, disappeared, unable to speak or act while he stepped in as my grieving husband, claiming authority over everything I'd built. What broke me wasn't the betrayal itself, but the calculated patience. The way he kissed me goodbye each morning while planning my destruction each night. He was drowning in debt, and instead of asking for help, he decided to drag me under to save himself. But here's what Nathan didn't understand about the woman he married. I didn't build $1 million company by being anyone's victim. 3 months later, I sat across from Nathan in the detention center. The orange jumpsuit looked foreign on the man who once commanded boardrooms. His eyes, once confident, now darted around the room like a trapped animal. "Why?" asked simply. The question I'd been carrying since that night. He stared at his shackled hands. "Everything was falling apart. I was going to lose it all. But your company was thriving. If I had access to your assets, I could have fixed everything. By drugging me. By making me unable to speak for myself." His eyes finally met mine. "You wouldn't have understood. You would have left. I couldn't let that happen." I leaned forward. "You're right about one thing, Nathan. I wouldn't have understood using someone else's life to save your own. And yes, I would have left. But that choice should have been mine to make, not yours." I stood to leave but turned back at the door. "You know what's ironic? If you had just asked for help, I would have given it. That's what partners do. But you chose to see me as a resource rather than a person. That's why you lost everything." The look on his face told me he finally understood what he'd truly sacrificed. It wasn't just the money or the freedom. It was the woman who would have moved mountains to save him, if only he'd been honest. Nathan was sentenced to 8 years for attempted poisoning and financial fraud. His firm dissolved, his reputation destroyed, his freedom gone. All because he underestimated the woman he thought he could manipulate. I didn't know exactly when it happened. When I stopped seeing myself as a victim and started recognizing my strength. Maybe it was the moment I switched those glasses, or when I chose to believe what I'd seen with my own eyes over his practiced reassurances. The months that followed weren't easy. I went to therapy, distanced myself from people who still clung to the illusion of our marriage, and let myself grieve. Not just the relationship, but the years I spent shrinking so someone else could shine. Then I began to speak. Women's conferences, podcasts, panels for nonprofits helping women recognize financial manipulation. I didn't tell my story for attention. I told it because silence is what almost killed me. Today, I'm not defined by what happened that night at the summit. I'm defined by what I did after. I rebuilt, stronger than before. I hired Jessica, the server who confirmed what I'd seen, as my executive assistant. She's studying business now, and I'm proud to mentor her. People ask if I ever loved Nathan, and the truth is yes. Deeply. But love isn't a reason to sacrifice your safety, and it's not an excuse for betrayal. No one, no matter how familiar, has the right to make you doubt your reality. If my story resonates with you, hear this. Trust yourself. Listen to your instincts. Don't wait for the crash to confirm what your gut already knows. That reflection in the window saved my life. But it was my choice to act on what I saw that saved my future. Nathan thought he was poisoning his problem. Instead, he poisoned his entire life. And me. I'm still here, stronger than ever, helping other women recognize the warning signs before it's too late. Sometimes the person trying to destroy you ends up destroying themselves. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply surviving and thriving while they face the consequences of their choices. This is Olivia's story, but maybe it's yours too.